Olá, tudo bem? Bem-vindo ao meu programa aqui no 247, parceria com The Real News, emissora norte-americana independente. Esses últimos 15 dias, no mundo da língua inglesa, principalmente Reino Unido e Estados Unidos, eram muito doidos. Primeiro, tinha uma grande expectativa que o Jeremy Corbyn iria vencer ou pelo menos conseguiu voto suficiente para montar uma coalição de governar a Inglaterra através de uma proposta bastante progressista que incluiu eliminação de uso de petróleo em 10 anos, ou renacionalização da companhia elétrica e água. Ele sofreu uma campanha de 3 anos de assassinato de caráter midiática enorme, comparável com o que a mídia fez com Lula aqui no Brasil. Mas além dos ataques midiáticos, houve erros estratégicos do partido Labour também. Para explicar isso hoje, o Mark Steiner do The Real News entrevistou um gigante intelectual da esquerda mundial, Tariq Ali. Tariq Ali era amigo do Malcolm X, era amigo do John Lennon. Em 1967, ele assinou um manifesto pedindo para o governo inglês legalizar maconha junto com todos os integrantes dos Beatles. Ele é autor de dezenas de livros, um gigante, e ele ainda apresenta um programa de televisão no Telesur inglês, a mesma emissora que eu represento aqui no Brasil. Ele vai explicar exatamente quais eram os erros táticos pelo partido Labour em Inglaterra. Mas antes disso, vai ter uma entrevista com o líder de um grupo político chamado Move On, nos Estados Unidos, geralmente associado com a aula mais progressista, mais esquerda, dentro do Partido Democrata, para explicar as manifestações nacionais a favor do impeachment que aconteceu nas vésperas do impeachment do Trump semana passada. Ele vai também responder qual é o objetivo desse impeachment, porque todo mundo sabe que Trump não vai ser retirado do poder pelo Senado, porque o Partido Republicano tem maioria absoluta no Senado. Mas então, quais eram as táticas atrás disso? Eu espero que todos e todas de vocês, independente do seu fé, sua religião, sua crença, se você é agnóstico, ateu, independente de tudo isso, que vocês conseguem passar um fim do ano maravilhoso com seus amigos, com as pessoas que vocês amam. Espero que todo mundo consiga desvincular um pouco das mídias sociais, da minha família para a sua. Feliz Natal, Feliz Ano Novo, bom fim do ano. E eu vou falar com vocês de novo ano que vem. Obrigado por assistir meu programa. E uma boa tarde para todos e todas de vocês.
We call for the impeachment and removal of President Donald J. Trump.
This is what democracy looks like. Impeach 45. Impeach 45. Impeach. Impeach.
What's your beef with the president?
He's a criminal.
Welcome to The Real News. I'm Mark Steiner. You just saw it. Yesterday, thousands of people in over 600 communities across America demonstrated in support of the impeachment of Donald Trump. From Hawaii to Boston, New York to New Orleans, Cheyenne, Wyoming, and LA and San Francisco, they marched. They ranged from a dozen people in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, to 125 in the freezing downtown of Detroit, Michigan, to thousands in the center of New York. People chanted everything from dump Trump to impeach Putin's puppet. In many places, they were confronted by Trump's supporters, showing the depth of the divide in America. What was the purpose of yesterday's demonstration? Why did they march? What brought the people out to the streets? Well, we're going to talk today with one of its organizers, David Sievers, who is campaign director for MoveOn.org. And David, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Mark. Nice to be here.
So, I'm curious, so when did you begin organizing this, all of you together collectively, and why?
Yeah, there's a coalition of dozens of organizations, and as of the day of the events yesterday, over 100 of them, who came together shortly after the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, signaled that the House would formally begin its inquiry into impeachment. And we decided that the night before the House vote would be the opportunity for sort of closing arguments for the impeachment of Donald Trump, and we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just seen as something happening in Washington, D.C., but that the fact that the majority of Americans support impeachment and removal is really what's driven this process, and that our voices were heard as one of the last things before members of the House cast their vote to impeach Donald Trump.
Well, let me ask you this. The Washington Post this morning, they had this article, and one of the things in the article they said that they talked about the relatively modest scale that happened in these demonstrations, and they said, quote, it reflected the difficulty Trump's opponents face in mobilizing voters to eject the president when the chances of doing so before 2020 election appear vanishingly small. So, yeah. And clearly, if there's an impeachment trial in the Senate, most likely will not be convicted. So, I mean, that's what they're saying, why the demonstrations were so small. How do you respond to that?
I have a few responses. First, we didn't know the date of these protests until Friday night, and we notified most people who'd RSVP'd on Saturday. So considering we had 3 or 4 days turnaround and hundreds of thousands of people turned out to 600 events around the country, I think that they were actually a pretty good showing. So, first, I think that the rapid response nature of when this vote would take place was part of the story here. Second, I want to separate out the question of what the Senate will do.
Yeah, sure.
From whether or not the House should impeach. You know, if the House of Representatives waited for Mitch McConnell to sort of signal that he would play ball and be fair in order to do anything, then nothing would get done. You know, and it's the Constitution doesn't say only if the Senate looks like it's going to have a fair trial should you impeach. No, it's the fact that Donald Trump thinks he's above the law and has broken the law. That requires the House to step in and protect us from, the next elections being influenced by foreign officials.
I mean, but you see that people are intensely opposed this, or they're for it. So, I mean, the question is, are people even on the progressive side of the spectrum and left are divided over the impeachment? So, I mean, what is your sense of that, and coming out of these demonstrations, and how America is going to receive all this?
Yeah, you raise a really good point that people are divided on what should be done here. But I think the key thing is that people are not divided on the facts. The facts are that Donald Trump, extorted or bribed a foreign official to interfere in our election to help him personally. That much is agreed upon. And what to do in that case is what's up for debate. Now, the Constitution clearly lays out that those are impeachable offenses. And so I think what we're really seeing is Republicans needing to decide whether they're going to continue to be the party of Trump or whether they're going to defend the Constitution against this kind of attack.
So what would be your strategy in all this, and organizations around you in the coming months? So if the impeachment vote will be taking place tonight, and then the trial probably won't start till next year, in January, in the Senate, and that'll be happening. So what will be strategically what you and others who support this impeachment want to push it hard? What do you plan to do?
I think that our work is really simple, which is just to show that what's at stake here is the country, that we are all Americans, and that whatever our political disagreements are, we're united by the fact that we have one set of rules that governs the country, and that we need to play by those rules. And right now, Donald Trump is trying to put himself above the law and saying that those rules, if you're rich enough and if you're powerful enough, they don't apply to you. And so I think our work is to make sure that at the end of the day, we make it simple rather than complicated, to show what's really at stake here.
So what do you say to people who say, look, I think that Donald Trump and the white nationalist kind of movement around him and the conservative establishment that has come together in some ways to kind of push their agendas through Donald Trump, that's the danger that we're facing. But this impeachment's not going to stop him. He's not going to be convicted in the Senate. The only way we can do this is to organize voters and organize communities to push for a different kind of America. What about that contradiction that someone throws at that to you?
Yeah. There have been a lot of reasons not to impeach Donald Trump that people have proposed. Some have said that he'll never get convicted in the Senate, but that's not an excuse for the House not to take action. And it seems like if Donald Trump thinks that he's above the law and acts like he's above the law, the most dangerous thing that the House can do is say, you know what, you're right, you are above the law. We are not brave enough to stand up and take the only action and recourse we have left to show that we're going to hold you accountable. Impeachment and elections are two different remedies for two different situations. Elections are a great, are an important way to change people if you disagree with them. But right now, what's at stake is the fundamental integrity of our next election. Donald Trump has shown that he's going to try to cheat in the coming election, and if it's up to the House and the Senate to get in his way by impeaching him and removing him from office, so that our next election is fair as well.
So yesterday, when you look at the clips of the demonstrations happening around the country, and they were, really across America, no state was untouched by these demonstrations yesterday. They were very passionate, they were very clear, and they were out there. A, I'm curious what you think was accomplished by yesterday's demonstrations, and B, I'm going to go back to what I asked earlier. These demonstrations have happened, so now what? So now what do these organizations do? What's your strategy between the trial and the election? How do you proceed?
Yeah, so I think what these events yesterday, the nobody is above the law events, did was show that that impeachment is a national issue, that regardless of what state, red, blue, purple, what kind of district you're in, there are people, your neighbors, your family members who support impeachment, and that they see it not as a partisan issue, but as an issue about really the core of our democracy. So I think that we showed that the vote that's hopefully happening today to impeach Donald Trump is one that's fueled by concern for defense of our democracy rather than anything else.
I know David Sievers we will be calling you a lot the next 6 months as we see how this rolls out, how the trial rolls out, and how this campaign rolls out for November and more. And I appreciate you taking time here at Real News.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
And we've been talking with David Sievers, who is campaign director for MoveOn.org. And I'm Mark Steiner here for the Real News Network. Let us know what you think about this program, but also about the impeachment and where it's going and what you think we should be covering. Take care. Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Mark Steiner. Great to have you with us, as usual. So, what just happened in Britain? Why did Labour tank? Was this, as some are saying, the Brexit election? Jeremy Corbyn thinks so. He said as much after he lost, and this is what Jeremy Corbyn had to say.
I have pride in our manifesto that we put forward and all the policies we put forward, which actually had huge public support on issues of universal credit, the green industrial revolution, and investment for the future. But this election was taken over, ultimately, by Brexit, and we as a party represent people who both voted Remain and Leave, and my whole strategy was to reach out beyond the Brexit divide to try and bring people together.
So is Jeremy Corbyn right? Some say the blame falls partly on his shoulders and a lack of clarity from Labour about Brexit. The Tory won seats that have always been Labour seats, in part because disgruntled Labour voters not only voted for Conservatives, but for smaller parties as well, giving them, the Conservatives, their victory. It reminds me a little bit of the French elections, where those who voted communist after years of economic dislocation voted for the right wing, but maybe it's much more complex than that. However, you explain what happened. This was a decisive victory for the Conservatives. They now have an absolute majority in Parliament. Not only will Brexit follow, but their vaunted National Health Care Service will be under attack. Privatization could run rampant. making Thatcher look like a piker. And deals may be cut with Trump. And how will all this fit into the political right-wing surge we see going across the globe? Is it part of it? The Scottish vote went left, but for the Scottish National Party, the SNP. And they push now for a new referendum to declare their independence from Britain. How will that turn out? A lot at stake for the future. So to begin our conversation, we have a conversation today with Tariq Ali, a writer, filmmaker, editor at the New Left Review. He's written numerous books on history and politics, 7 novels, produced at least 3 films that I know about, wrote screenplays, and his latest book is The Dilemmas of Lenin, which I've not read, but I will. And Tariq, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Very nice to be with you, Mark.
So was Jeremy Corbyn right? Was this the Brexit election? Is that why they lost? What happened here?
Well, it was the Brexit election. Labour's strategy of playing both sides failed. But more importantly, Mark, I think the point has to be made that once the referendum had taken place in 2015, it was obvious a majority of the country wanted to quit the European Union for a variety of reasons. Some right-wing reasons, some did it to give the establishment a kick in the posterior because of the neoliberal agendas they were following. And then people expected that Brexit would be implemented. All the political parties, including Labour, said that they would implement the will of the people as expressed in this referendum. As the Conservatives managed to stitch a coalition together after the 2017 election, in which Corbyn did very well, adding 1 million more votes to Labour and denying the Tories a majority, in the interim, the gap between 2017 and 2019, Labour started behaving differently. In my opinion, they should have let Theresa May or Boris Johnson get on with it and deliver Brexit. And then 6 months later, when there was an election, Labour could have fought on this programme and won. Instead, Labour united with the Lib Dems and the Remainer groups inside Parliament and actually made big play of having stopped the Conservatives from implementing something that had been voted for. So the impression created in the minds of large numbers of people, not exclusively leavers, Brexiteers, was that an attempt was being made to sabotage the referendum by establishment politicians. And Labour could never cut loose from that. Jeremy Corbyn, to his credit, was not in favour of this initially. But John McDonnell, other people within the Labour left, and of course, large numbers of supporters of Blair and Brown in the Parliamentary Labour Party pushed this through, then followed it up by promising a second referendum. That, I think, was the last straw for many, many working-class Labour voters in the North, who voted, in some cases, for Conservatives, but in many cases by voting for the Brexit Party, led by Nigel Farage. And these split-off votes to Nigel Farage denied Labour a majority in their traditional seats. You can see it in a number of seats. It's quite shocking to see seats which have been Labour seats, in some cases, since there was a universal adult franchise almost, now going to the Conservatives. And if you look at the map, it's pretty horrific. So I think it was definitely Brexit, and I think it was a monumental strategic blunder by Labour to promise a second referendum and not to stand aside while the Tories implemented what they wanted to implement it. Then we could have had a clean fight. Boris has won. And he's won because this is what he promised people. He said, my own party has been dilly-dallying. The other parties have been attempting to sabotage the referendum results. I will deliver. And he attempted to deliver and was blocked. And so he played that for all it was worth, kept the election exclusively on Brexit, and not all Labour's horses, all men and women, could change that agenda. Jeremy's absolutely right. a majority of people like many of the key elements in the Labour programme, but that is not what the election turned out to be about.
So, a couple of things here. Let's first take a look at, you mentioned Boris Johnson. This is a very brief clip of, it may be the gloating clip. We'll see.
They will have an overwhelming mandate from this election to get Brexit done, and we will honour that mandate by January the 31st. And in the next few weeks and months, we will be bringing forward proposals to transform this country with better infrastructure, better education, better technology. And if you ask yourselves, what is this new government going to do? What is he going to do with his extraordinary majority? I will tell you that is what we are going to do. We are going to unite and level up.
So in a little bit of time we have left here, there's a couple things I want to raise. One of them is who we just watched and how this could actually really transform Britain and affect Europe and its relationship with the United States, Britain's relationship with the U.S., with Trump at the helm, because he could be at the helm for quite some time. We're talking about Boris Johnson. So this could really change Britain in ways that Thatcher only dreamed about. Am I wrong about this?
I don't think it'll change it more than Thatcher did. That was a pretty decisive 2 terms of office in which they embarked on a neoliberal program. I think Boris will probably privatize, not by stealth, but more or less openly, the National Health Service and promise it will still be free at the point of production for anyone who belongs to it, but it would be more efficient if it was privatized. So that's where people who voted Labour unthinkingly to punish Corbyn are going to feel the pain over the next few years. And I wouldn't exclude necessarily a wave of strikes like we're seeing in France today if Boris attempts to move too rapidly, too fast on privatizing the health service and carrying on. I mean, they've privatized most things, Mark, so there's not too much left to privatize, which is why Labour was going to take the railways back, bring the utilities back under public ownership, because these privatizations have in most cases been a complete disaster. That has been stopped by Boris's figure.
So what then is the future for Labour, from your perspective?
I think if you look at the figures in some detail, what is interesting is the fact that in the 18 to 24 years age group, Labour won 57%, Conservatives 19%. If you look at the 25 to 34-year age group, Labour won 45%, Conservatives won 30%. In the 60 pluses, the Conservatives won 62%, Labour 18%. So I'm afraid the elderly, God knows how and why, voted for the Conservative. Our generation, Mark, basically let the side down very badly.
Are you trying to say, Tarek, that once we're out of the way, the revolution will begin?
The future is going to be a Labour future in 5-6 years' time, as these young people grow up and others come and they have to live under yet another Tory government. The reaction will probably be quite swift, but Britain might be different. Not so much in the horror stories which people have been thinking will come about, but Scotland, I think, where the SNP is now in total command, could go independent. Yes. Ireland could move towards unity. The Conservative Party itself is split. The Liberals, who were the sort of big white hope of liberal columnists and journalists, collapsed. Their leader lost her seat. So I think one shouldn't imagine that things will quieten down. They will possibly, till Brexit is done, which could take another year. And then politics will resume, and we shall see.
And you mentioned the Scottish vote. It would be hard put to see another referendum, but this is still going to be a huge place of discord over the next several years.
I think over the next few years, the centre of opposition to the Conservative government will be Edinburgh, will be Glasgow, will be the Scottish Parliament. They're the ones who will fight back. They're the ones whose leaders will speak up. And of course, we hope that when Jeremy goes, and he shouldn't do that quickly, but when he goes, his replacement will be someone who believes in quite a few of the things that were pledged in the Labour manifesto. It would be a disaster for Labour were someone to suggest that they should go back to the Tony Blair, Gordon Brown days. Were they to do that, they would lose half their membership, which is at the moment just over 500,000. Lots of people, young people, would leave the party. So it's all up for grabs again. And, we will see what happens over the next 6 months.
Yeah, it'll be, as you're pointing out, it will be inside the Labour Party, the neoliberals versus the left, and also kind of generational battles. Tariq Ali, I really deeply appreciate you taking the time with us here in your evening in London at home, and we look forward to talking to you again soon and seeing how this unfolds and how it fits into what's facing the world at the moment. So thank you so much for your work and for being with us today. And check out his new book, The Dilemmas of Lenin. I'm going to do that. And I'm Mark Steiner here for the Real News Network. Thanks for joining us. Let us know what you think. Take care.